General Conference 2015, a daily report by LLBN with Dr. Calvin Rock and Hannah Luttrell. And now, GC 2015 LLBN Daily Report.
Hi, welcome to the LLBN Daily Report, coming to you from the 60th General Conference session from right here on the convention floor in San Antonio, Texas. Dr. Rock, it's Thursday today. As we know, yesterday was a kind of a landmark day in this whole GC session where the vote was taken as to whether divisions could ordain women to the gospel ministry in their areas, and the vote turned out with, what were the numbers again for the vote?
977 yes and 1381 no.
Oh. What have been the reactions to that vote so far?
Well, of course, those who voted no are happy, and those who voted yes are not happy. They're disappointed.
Right. What do you think are, have you heard from some of these individuals, or what are their implications going forward?
Well, those who were hoping that it would be a yes vote, of course, are wondering what the alternatives are. You can imagine that the reactions run all the way from, well, that's what it is, so we'll just have to live with it, to some saying, well, look, they said no, but we're going to do it anyway. So you've got both sides going, and we'll have to wait and see.
Right. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, the vote was whether the divisions would be able to ordain women to ministry, but isn't ordination at a union level?
It is the union that gives the authorization, but it is assumed and expected that the union would not go forward without some sort of understanding with the division, which is a subset of the General Conference itself. But it is correct that the authority to ordain or to approve ordination of an individual rests with the union.
Right.
So it's possible that you could have unions in the future doing what unions have done in the past within a certain division, and not the whole division going for it. But again, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Right.
Elder Wilson's plea is that everybody stay together. We'll have to see if that plea is heeded, and it'll be interesting.
Now, I know a comment was made on the floor yesterday by, was it the Pacific Union president, on the concept of unity amidst diversity.
Yes,
Can you comment more on that?
Ricardo Graham, Dr. Graham, who is the president of the Pacific Union, was one of those who stated himself or herself, and he was restricted to 2 minutes. And by the way, viewers, you should know that the commentators were timed, and there was a huge timer. You could see the seconds running off. If you were being involved with translation, then of course you had 3 minutes. But if you were speaking English, you had just 2 minutes. And that's not a lot of time to get your point across, but of course with 2,500 delegates, and many of them wanting to speak to the issue, there had to be some rather strict orders about that. At any rate, Elder Graham, Dr. Graham, made the point in the matter of unity, or concerning unity, that we have a lot of varied ways of lifestyle and even liturgy and service in our church. And he pointed out that in some countries there is polygamy. We don't have it in the United States, but the policy provides that where a woman might be put out of her home because the family is coming into the church, she may actually stay there, and that rather than see her suffer the indignities that the country would heap upon such a person, remain. And he brought that out, and he said, look, there's a lot of difference. We have unity, but it's unity in diversity. It's not unison It's unity and diversity. That was his point, and of course the point was made by others, but I thought he made it very clearly, and that of course is a powerful argument, but it didn't seem to have a huge dent on the minds of those who feel, for theological and sociological reasons, that it should not be. So it was a great debate. A lot of good things were said. Some rather curious things were said, such as the delegate who wanted to punish the divisions or unions in which the ordination has proceeded. And he felt, look, before we can talk about this question, we need to do something about those who have ordained already. That didn't get too far, thank the Lord, but he brought it up.
All right. Now I have here some statistics that I found from the Adventist Office of General Statistics. And as you know, similar votes have been taken in the past. One that you chaired in Utrecht.
In 1995 in Utrecht, yes.
And another one 5 years prior to that in Indianapolis.
In 1990.
Right, and the motions differ slightly, but all centered around the ordination of women.
And you have the results?
I do.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. In Indianapolis in 1990, the votes are about 24% agreeing to the ordaining of women and 76% no. So about a quarter affirming that and 3/4 denying that. Now in Utrecht in 1995, where you chaired, the vote was slightly higher. It was 31% voting in favor of ordination and 69% not. And of course, last night we had a 41% agreeing to let the divisions decide to ordain women versus 59% who were against that.
So, in a 20-year period, from 1995 to 2015, there's a 10% gain in the percentage of those voting. It went from 30 voting affirmatively. It went from 31% to 41%.
Correct.
Which means in another 20 years, which would be 2035, we may get from 41 to 51 if the same, well, we can't really say, can we? And we hope time doesn't last that long. But it is
That's
a good
right.
indicator as to the fact that there's a growing percentage for women's ordination around the world, but that it's slow. It's slow, and we'll have to see whether those who are for it are willing to wait.
That's right. Now, Elder Paulson, our former president of the General Conference, spoke yesterday on the floor
He
and
did.
gave a plea for the yes vote.
Yes.
He is in favor of the ordination of women in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asking, do you know why he didn't do that during his 11 years as a president?
Good question. And since I served as one of his vice presidents, you might think I would know, but I don't really, except to say that each president has to deal with issues of his time. This was an issue, but perhaps it wasn't in his mind the major issue. Perhaps he found it necessary to try to court opinion on a more one-to-one basis and an objective, worldwide way. I don't really know. I applaud him for speaking out on yesterday as passionately as he did, but I really can't speak to why he wasn't more aggressive on the issue. Maybe he wasn't that convinced then. You know, you take Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they weren't convinced on what the Supreme Court approved the other day about same-sex marriage. They said that they grew into it. Well, maybe that's not a good example, but my point is, it's possible, and certainly we're sorry that they grew into it. Our position would be is that they condescended. They didn't go up, they went down. But what I'm trying to say is that presidents have to be convinced like everybody else, and maybe he wasn't convinced.
Yeah.
Or if he was not ready to do what he thought might have been divisive in the church.
Right.
But I'm glad he's speaking up now.
Right. Again, perhaps he also felt that as the world continues to grow and develop as well, perhaps he felt it wasn't the right time back then, but maybe he felt that we're going more towards that day where it would be more acceptable in many parts of the world. Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Rock. Anything else you want to add before we go to our division reports?
Well, I want to say a word about the whole business on creationism and the fact that there's this lingering discussion as to the age of the earth and whether or not, since the sun and the moon were created later, how could God have been working 24 hours 3 days prior when there was no sun? And that really we forget sometimes that we keep the Sabbath not only because of creation week, but also because when Jesus was here, he kept the Sabbath. He made the earth, he made the world, he is the creator, and when he came in human form as our second Adam, he kept the 24-hour Sabbath. And we follow his example. Even the crucifixion, he was buried on Friday, he rose on first day, he kept the Sabbath. So the fact that Jesus himself as a human honored and memorialized the Sabbath and set our example should not be forgotten in this whole debate.
Right, thank you. Yeah, that's a good clarification. So over to our division reports. Yesterday evening, as usual, the 3 divisions this time gave their reports from their divisions of what's going on there. Again, we're getting our information from the Adventist Review. You want to check out their website and get the information direct yourself. But here's a summary of some of the findings of those reports. What do you have to share with us, Dr. Rock?
Yes, the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, which is comprised of the countries of Botswana and Malawi and Madagascar and South Africa, has a total of 3,346,528 members. Another very large membership, as all 3 of the Africa divisions. And of course, they also have 2,000 churches. They have 1,552 pastors.
That's not a lot of pastors
a lot of
for
preachers.
that many millions of members.
And over 9,000 churches, almost 10,000 churches. And this one I felt was very significant, approximately 4,000 colporteurs or literature evangelists. Kind of a dying breed in America and some other places, but it's a wonderful thing that they are still very vibrant in the work of literature ministry.
That's great because they're probably responsible largely to that amazing growth in membership, because of only 1,500 pastors and 3 million members, if you do the math, that's a lot of people per pastor. So it sounds like a lot of other people, lay people, colporteurs, are helping in that ministry as well.
Sowing the seed through literature, and the pastors follow through the way it ought to be. The way it ought to be.
Yeah.
It should also be noted that their best memory of the quinquennium was a Sabbath in which they baptized 3,000 people in one day.
It's just like Acts.
Yeah, and they trumpeted that in a very joyful manner.
That is joyful news indeed. Well, what are some of the other divisions that reported yesterday?
All right, we also had one of those exciting reports from the South Pacific Division.
Okay, what does that comprise of?
The South Pacific Division is comprised of course, Australia and New Zealand and Papua New Guinea and all of the islands, or most of the islands of the South Pacific.
Right.
They are Polynesian and Melanesian and Micronesian and Caucasian and Indian and Chinese and Arabic and Sudanese and Chilean. So you can imagine what it must be flying, and most of these you can't take a simple boat ride. So they have to fly the division leaders to meet with the members in the various islands of the sea. And this division, as all of our divisions, reported a very, very large growth in membership. They are one of the more exciting parts of our World Church. And when I say that, they do a big work in their food factory. They do a big work not as big, I understand, as it used to be. But they do a great work also in our medical field with their clinics and their hospitals. And 80% of that membership is in Papua New Guinea and the other smaller islands of the Pacific. So they now have a division team that reflects that ethnic blend, and the South Pacific Division is 800 or comprised of 850 languages in Papua New Guinea alone.
Oh my, that's a
Just
lot of
one
languages.
country, 850 languages.
Wow, that is a lot of
and
languages.
they are one of the most diverse. They presented themselves as one of the most diverse of all of our divisions.
Right.
We're happy and proud for what God is doing through the South Pacific Division.
Right, that's great. I've actually met a lot of people here from Papua New Guinea, so that's definitely been exciting to see.
Have you been there?
I haven't, but I've met a lot of people who are from there, so
I've
that's
been there.
exciting. You have?
And it is exciting. On my trip there, they took us to the school, went to the school, one of the schools, and the members of the church dressed up in the garb of the local tribes, and as we were coming out of one of the villages, they pretended as if they were attacking us. I happened to have gotten a little hint that they were going to do it.
Okay, that's good. I was
But-
going to ask if you knew that ahead of time.
But some of the folk with me didn't know, and boy, were they afraid. But they are a great people, and a very happy and cheerful people, and a part of a wonderful, wonderful division.
That's great. Okay, then now the last division to report last night was the Southern Asia Pacific Division, which is dear to my heart because I spent a lot of time over there in Singapore.
Where?
In Singapore,
Ah,
one of those
okay.
countries. And so I have a list of those countries right here. Southern Asia Pacific Division comprises of Bangladesh, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam, as well as Pakistan. A population covering 950 million people.
And over 1 million members.
Million members.
Yeah, 1 million plus, which is itself another testimony to how the gospel is going in some very, very difficult places.
That's
Because
right,
the names
yeah.
of those countries you just mentioned, with the exception maybe of the Philippines, and I think, well, we might include Vietnam, but even there we've had a lot of
Yeah, I think
heavy
it's-
sledding. But
Right.
the Philippines has been particularly an energizing country for this division.
Right,
And in
yeah.
fact, in my travels around the world, it's hard to go anywhere, Africa, India, anywhere, without finding Filipino missionaries. Filipinos are such a vivacious and vibrant and attractive group of missionaries. And I love to go to the Filipino churches around. Oh, they all serve good food, but boy, my Filipino friends do a special job.
Right, yeah, you're right. And Philippines probably has a bit less of the persecution and the strong other dominant non-Christian religions as some of these other countries that we mentioned.
So you actually lived in Singapore.
I did,
Which
yes.
is one of the 14 countries of this division. How long were you there?
10 years.
10 years. How many languages do you speak?
Well, I'm not very representative of my typical Singaporeans as I wasn't born there.
Okay.
But I only speak English and some Mandarin.
So
but
Mandarin
the
and
typical Singaporean would speak a bit of Malay, a bit of different dialects of Cantonese and
Okay.
Hokkien and different things that I wish I could, but I don't.
So if they sent you over to China to on some mission service, you could handle yourself with the Mandarin.
We'll see. I'll probably have to grow a lot in my Mandarin, that's
Oh,
for sure.
great. Well, again, it's just a great element of this general conference and every general conference to see all these divisions reporting. And each night, a division or two, in this case 3, will make its report or their reports, and that's the most popular hour of the day. When they come across that stage in their country's dress, waving their flags, singing their songs, one nation after another. It's so stimulating and such a wonderful precursor of what we're going to do one day when God gathers all his people together from all parts of the world. I want to be a part of that. How about you?
Amen. Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Rock, you've had a busy morning talking to a lot of people, I see. And perhaps we can roll to one of those interviews that you did this morning.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Greetings, everybody. We're back again, laying hold on brothers and sisters who are passing by, talking and chatting, but we're just grabbing them and bringing them in so you could meet them. And I have two gentlemen with me here that I'd like for you to hear and see. And I'm going to start with the man on my right. He's going to tell you who he is and what he does.
My name is Jim Peterson, and I'm president of the Northern California Conference.
All right, and on my left.
I'm Tony Inoble, president of the Arizona Conference.
So we have two presidents of the Pacific Union, the great Pacific Union, where I happen to live. And this gentleman was my president for some time. It's always good to see you, Elder. How are things going in Arizona?
Things are going well. It's hot, but it's not humid. But the Lord is blessing, and we're growing the kingdom for the honor and glory of God.
How many members do we have in Arizona?
You know, we have about 19,800. We keep wanting to get to 20,000, and we're almost there.
And how many pastors approximately?
We have about 70, 75 pastors.
And in Northern California?
We have about 130 pastors. We just surpassed 40,000 members.
Beautiful. Now, what institutions do you have in Northern?
Well, in Northern California, we've got Pacific Union College in our territory. We've got Maranatha Volunteers International in our territory. Adventist Health has their headquarters in Northern California territory. We've got Amazing Facts in our territory. Number of organizations call our territory home.
And of course, there are others in Arizona as well. I know one school, very prominent school, and there are others.
We have the Souls West School, which of course prepares our young people to serve as task force people all over the country. And we don't have a hospital. We wish we could. We're trying to entice health systems to work with us. But of course, Thunderbird Adventist Academy. And if I could, we have Good News TV, English and Spanish, 24 hours a day in Arizona.
Now, in your conferences, is there a lot of mission endeavor? Do you have young people going out and others going different places in the world serving?
Sure. We have our academy every year does a mission trip out of the States. And this year we're already talking with Share Him in the fall to send 40 young adults to Costa Rica to do a series of Share Him meetings, as well as we've done trips with Maranatha, and we're very excited and happy to participate with them.
What a vibrant ministry that is. And the same, I'm sure, in Northern.
Absolutely. We've got a number of our churches, Pathfinder clubs, and our conference goes with Maranatha on trips almost every year. We have a number of people going on Share Him trips. We've done medical missionary outreach, trying to reach our big cities. Very active.
Finally, has anything happened here that surprised you or delights you in particular? What's your reaction to not just the fellowship? Now that's great, everybody knows, but what about the business of the church? Any comments on anything in particular? Creationism, women's ordination, or changes in the church manual? See anything you want to mention?
Well, I appreciate that. You know, as somebody pointed out today, the vote yesterday really wasn't women's ordination. It was whether or not divisions could decide on their own whether or not to move forward with ordination. And I guess I would say, Dr. Rock, that I do believe that unity does not mean uniformity. We had the discussion, however, we are a world church. We'll have to decide in North America moving forward what we're going to do. But I will confess that I had wished the vote had gone a different way yesterday. But this is God's church. He's going to see us through. And I asked a young adult pastor, how do you feel? His response made me so happy. I'm excited to be a part of God's church, and we're still going to preach the gospel.
Great.
I love seeing God's church at work. Now, we don't always agree, and I think some of the votes that have been taken, particularly on the ordination allowance issue, showed us that we have a lot of conversation yet to do, because the world church is very diverse, and we need to be able to walk together under the umbrella of Seventh-day Adventist brothers and sisters and still be able to share those differences, but yet walk together.
You know, before we conclude, my colleague Hannah did a little research, and she revealed a moment ago in a prior session that in 1990, 24% voted yes. Maybe you've seen that. And that in 95, it was, 31%. And this time it was 41 or 42%. So it's climbing, and that's interesting. But of course, that's not the only big thing that happened here. Probably the biggest thing, let's tell the truth. It was the issue, what they would say, some people would call the elephant in the room, the 800-pound elephant. But at any rate, it's over, the decision has been made, and you who are leading in North America will have to guide as we go forward. And I know you're going to do so in a very sane and a very balanced way, prayerfully, and God will lead you. You have my prayers, and I know you have the prayers of our viewers. Appreciate what you're doing, and it's good to see you again. Good to get better acquainted with you. Take care. Safe journey home. Ladies and gentlemen, two of the shakers and movers. Let's pray for them as we pray for each other.
Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Rock, for those reports.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you again every night, again 7 p.m. Pacific time, and the repeat times on the screen throughout the rest of the day. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.